And it will have our,
Okay.
now you can start.
Yeah, okay, so roll call
John Mailing,
here.
Matt Pence,
Here.
John Levin,
Present.
Jen Balliet,
Here. Sorry, here.
Cheryl Brown,
Here.
and I think that is it for now.
Very well. We'll move on to receipt and discussion. First item is S21-575, 12 Noah Lot Lane. Before we discuss this, let me just say that we're going to have a public hearing at 7 o'clock. We will try to get as much accomplished between now and 7 o'clock as we can. But in any case, without further ado, let's move on. This is demolition of existing structure and construction of new Cranberry Elementary School adjacent to wetlands. Anyone here from the city?
Yes, and I want to just quickly note that Commissioner Clockey has arrived right after, seconds after roll call.
Excellent.
And yeah, so it's pretty much there are wetlands on the property at Noah Lot Lane. There are plans to build a new school and then demolish the old school and redo the flow of the parking lot and access to the site. And the applicant team, you are more than invited to do a brief presentation of what you're proposing to do. It doesn't need to be super detailed. As you heard, we're trying to get to a 7 o'clock public hearing. But if you want to hit the highlights and try to stick to wetland impacts or non-wetland impacts and work within the upland review area. And if you could just, when you speak, be sure to state your name and who you work for, and that'd be great.
All right, quick introduction. I'm John Gombatz with Construction Solutions Group, project manager with the city of Norwalk for this project. And I do have Lisa Yates from Antonazzi Associates and Phil Katz and Kent Gannon from Stantec to present tonight.
And Kent's going to be doing the presentation this evening. Hi, this is Lisa. I'm here in case there are any non-civil engineering related questions for the architect.
Thank you, everyone. This is Kent Gannon. Hopefully you can hear me clearly. Again, Kent Gannon from Stantec. We are the site civil landscape architects for the design team on the project. I'm sharing my screen now, and what you're seeing here is the existing Cranberry Elementary School and how it sits on the site. It's a rather large site, over 31 acres. Approximately half of the site is occupied by wetlands. There are some existing tennis courts sort of to the west of the school, as well as an existing ball field. There's a playground located east of the school. And the access to the school is off Noah Lot Lane, which is this long road that runs kind of diagonal through the site. Just to orient yourself here, north is up on all these plans you will be seeing tonight. So access to the site is through this one-way drive here. There's sort of a loop here, and then to exit the site, you would exit south towards Noah Lot Lane, and there's a little splitter island, whether you're headed west or east there. As far as the existing site goes, or the proposed site, I should say, here's a sort of a high level 80 scale overview plan. It's a little bit difficult to see sort of where you sit here versus the existing site. So I do have another plan that I'll kind of pop up now and again, but I will just show it kind of here first. This building that's colored in gold, that's the existing Cranberry Elementary School. The shaded building here, this is where the new school is proposed. And the proposed design and location of the school allows the existing building to be in use while the new building gets built. And as far as the available area to build at the site, it's obviously very limited. The wetlands kind of impacts where this building can be located. There were a number of different alternatives we looked at in orienting the building and placing the building in different locations, and kind of how we've fallen here with the building located just west of the existing school building. Again, allows some of the existing parking areas to be reused during construction.
Hey, Ken, can you just outline where those existing wetlands are on this sheet, just to give people what that is?
Yeah, I can. So the existing wetlands are, if you see all these little markations on the survey here, that's the wetlands flag on the survey. It's actually better to see here. I try to put it in color here. So this green line is the existing wetlands in the vicinity of the school. So we have wetlands located to the north, wetlands located to the northeast of both the proposed and existing school. And then there's also wetlands to the south. There's a pocket wetlands here. There's a pocket wetlands just south of the existing school, and then another large wetland across Noah Lot Lane. So kind of back to the proposed design. After the existing building is built, that'll allow the demolition, or after the proposed building is built, it'll allow the demolition of the existing building with the intent really to provide a looped parent drop-off separate from the bus drop-off, which is located here. So you'll have a two-way access here. You'll be able to loop around as a parent, drop your child off, exit the site, or access this parking area here. Buses will enter the site off Noah Lot Lane in a new entrance, one-way entrance, fairly close to this two-way. Bus drop-off will be along this edge, and then again, they'll reuse the existing exit from the school site. We've relocated a tennis court on sort of the west of the site, as well as this basketball area, play area. We've got a couple of playground areas here. We've got one for older students located just west of this north wing here, and one for preschool age students here. Kind of providing this long swooping loop road kind of provides two things. It allows for a long queue length of parent drop off, and it also provides a nice area to provide a new soccer field and a new ball field in this area. Sort of why are we here tonight? This new layout does impact the upland review areas in 3 locations. I've indicated them here in this color-coded plan. We have an impact area number 1 to the just off the northwest corner of the proposed school. We've identified permanent fill of 61 cubic yards. Impact area 2 is associated with the loop road, or the loop drop off, the one-way loop drive. It's a small impact area also associated with the grading for the drive. And then the third impact area we've identified is just south of the proposed building. So impact area 3, it's got an impact area of 2,954 feet and just a small amount of fill and cut within the area. One of the things I will note with this impact area 3 here is a lot of the impact has to do with the removal of the impervious pavement from the existing parking lot here, and that impervious pavement will be replaced with a water quality swale, which kind of brings me into the stormwater design here. What we tried to do was reuse as much of the existing infrastructure as we could, not impact the existing drainage patterns at the site, but obviously keeping in line with Norwalk's drainage manual, Connecticut DOT drainage manual, and the deep manual as well for water quality. And we've been able to accomplish that through a number of different measures. One of those being a decrease in impervious area at the site. But we've also implemented some hydrodynamic separators in some key locations to help remove sediment from stormwater runoff. This boxed area you see here is where we have a proposed underground infiltration system, which helps to reduce obviously peak runoff rates and volume. A couple other water quality improvements we have. Sort of the shaded area along the parent loop What we've done here is remove the curb here, which allows stormwater runoff to sheet flow over this flat shelf vegetated area. So the vegetated area acts as a nice vegetated filter strip, removing some of the sediment and reducing the runoff to this wetland area over here. And like I mentioned before, this impact area number 3, we were able to sort of redesign, relay out the parking lot that's there, reuse some of the existing pavement with just a mill and overlay, but also remove a fairly large area of impervious surface and replace it with a water quality swell, which flows to an existing catch basin located in the southeast corner of this parking lot, which reuses this existing drainage area, which is kind of grayscale here. I think one of the last things to note here is we've also included an infiltration trench along this newly designed portion of a parking lot here. So this infiltration trench will intercept runoff flowing towards this wetland area and infiltrate it back into the groundwater. And that's really a quick 5-minute overview. I don't know if Phil or Lisa has anything they want to add, but
Yeah, just the septic.
oh yeah, one more thing to add. We will do. We are going to construct a new sanitary line across the site, and then onto the site across the street. The existing system and leach field over here, we're planning on reusing. There's no new system that's going in, but our new pipe we plan on routing to avoid any impact to this little pocket wetland and upland review area.
I have a question. Again, we're not going to drag you into the small details of this at this point, but to what extent does the new school building reflect the changes in energy consumption and stormwater runoff remediation that has occurred since the old school building was built? It seems like a good opportunity when building a new structure like this to incorporate as much conservation related and energy related improvements as possible.
That sounds like an architect question.
It's at least half an architect question. So the new building is built under the regulations of Connecticut high performance building. So it's a checklist system very similar to LEED that the state uses. We're also working with Eversource to analyze the building envelope, the insulation, the roof, the windows, that sort of thing, to make sure it's very tight and has high R values, a lot of insulation. There are some points that we're working with Stantec on that have to do with the site itself that are high performance related. And they have to do with the quality of management of water on site. And I don't know, Ken, if you want to jump in.
Yeah, I mean, I think I can add a little bit to that. You know, I kind of hit on some of the things we've added here to improve the overall water quality of the site. Some of this, you know, filter strips, the water quality swells, the infiltration trenches, even the hydrodynamic separators and the underground retention. All plays a part in the overall, you know, improvement of water quality at the site. You know, it doesn't go without noting that the existing site lacks any of these features. So it's sort of your traditional catch basin pipe manhole system where it's collect the water as fast as you can, get it to the wetlands or the outfall, wherever that happens to be, sort of as quickly and efficiently as possible. So we've obviously moved away from that concept. And rightfully so. So we've tried to slow the flow, if you will, and use the landscape to our advantage where we can.
Another architecture question. Is it a flat roof building?
Yes, it's a flat roof building. And we are also, the Board of Ed is planning to put solar on this roof.
Okay. And to what extent is the impervious footprint, I guess, of the site being reduced? I got a sense that it was being reduced to some extent, and I wonder if you can give us some numbers.
I can't off the top of my head. I have to dig into the report a little bit and into the numbers, but that is something obviously we can provide.
Okay, that's fine. Just something we're interested in.
Yep.
Commissioners,
Yeah, you identified 3 areas, whether they were wetland areas or in the upland review area, where you'd have some work going on. You explained one of them by replacing the impervious surface with water quality swale. Can you just explain the other 2, what's happening there?
Yep, absolutely. So let me just switch back to this other plan here. So we have this in our application package as identified as area 1. So this is grading. It'll be earthwork and permanent grading and elevation changes associated mainly with the height of the finished floor of the building, the new building. So in order to grade down from the new building finished floor to the existing grade, the slope needs to kind of run out into the upland review area here. So this is currently scheduled to receive new topsoil seeding, and I believe we do have a couple trees located in that area as well. And then it's similar. Impact area 2 is similar. We played with a few different alternatives on this loop road to try to fit it in here and change the shape of it. But in order to keep this sort of as a nice shape just for traffic flow and also keep the queue length what's necessary for what we've observed out there for parent drop off, and also provide ample space where we can provide a ball field of appropriate size and a soccer field of appropriate size with also appropriate buffers to the impervious surfaces that kind of surround the site. Again, there's just some minor grading impacts within this upland review area.
Commissioner Levin, did you have your hand up?
No, I did not, but I just want to point out that on our agenda, this application is identified as 12 Noah Lot Lane, but on the application, it's 10 Noah Lot Lane. I would be sad if our proceedings applied only to 12 Noah Lot Lane when the applicant wants 10 Noah Lot Lane. So I don't.
So I believe the survey and some of the land records indicate that this is 12 Noah Lot Lane, but the address that's used by the school is 10. It's the same parcel.
Right. So the mailing address is 10 Noah Lot Lane, but according to the assessor's map and the district block and lot parcel identification, it is 12 Noah Lot Lane, and that's why we refer to it that way as opposed to the mailing address.
Okay.
So we're in the right place.
Yeah.
Yes, you did confirm that we're all talking about the same location.
Okay.
Ken, one other thing just about the schedule, just start of construction and anticipated completion.
Yeah, so I think as of now, the start of construction is expected in spring 2022 with the completion in the fall of 2023.
It's phased construction, so the building will be done by then, and I think we're still going to be finishing inside the loop. But that's pretty close. Yep.
So it is a intermediate application. So it does not outright warrant a significant regulated activity application because of its the amount of activity is below how your definitions define a significant regulated activity. That said, you can always make the determination that it warrants either a significant or just a public hearing if you like.
That would not be necessary for me.
Nor I. Okay, if none of the commissioners is looking to explore that possibility, I guess, unless there are more questions or comments to make at this point, which is a very early point, I think we can wrap this up. Is any other questions, commissioners? Okay, thank you all.
you.
We look forward to the progress. There's Steve. Okay, moving along now to 70 Witch Lane, corrective action. Alexis, where do we stand here?
This is a corrective action application that issued or upheld an order a little while ago, and it required that the applicant restore the wetland. And but before doing that, apply for a corrective action application. The order also required the applicant to have a soil scientist field delineate the extent of wetlands on the property, and the property owner did do that. They actually had 2 wetland scientists out there. And then additionally, they've hired a firm to assist them with coming up with a site plan, which is being shared currently, that shows what their proposed scope of work is. So do you want to just kind of let the applicant jump in and describe what they are proposing for their corrective action mitigation work? That's all right?
Yes, we'd be glad to hear it.
Excellent.
Thank you, Ms. Carachetti and members of the commission. My name is Liz Succi. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Carmody, Torrance, Sandak, and Hennessy, and I represent the property owner, Jen Horvath. On the call tonight is Kate Throckmorton of Environmental Land Solutions, and Kate's firm prepared the wetland mitigation plan that is on the screen right now. But just to go back a little bit, as I indicated, Jen Horvath is the owner and applicant of the property, which is located at 70 Witch Lane, District 6, Block 20D, Lot 19. The property is just over 3/4 of an acre in size. The application before you is a significant activity corrective action application, and it relates to a notice of violation number V21-1021, which was served upon my client for work undertaken without permits or Conservation Commission approval. We were before you in May on a show cause hearing. And since that time, as Ms. Carachetti indicated, the wetlands and watercourses were evaluated and flagged first by Otto Thiel and then by Dr. Steve Danzer. And Dr. Danzer's report is part of the filing that we submitted in June. The wetland mitigation plan was then developed by Environmental Land Solutions. No activity has been undertaken on the property since the notice of violation was issued. Also, that this matter could be resolved in a way that is acceptable to the commission and to my client. And then we filed the application for corrective activity in July of this year. The delay was caused simply by virtue of the fact that it took not only 1, but 2 soil scientists to evaluate the site, what had taken place, and to provide their reports. And then those reports needed to be provided to Ms. Throckmorton for her to undertake her work. As I indicated, my client did undertake some work without prior approval, but that was based upon, frankly, her lack of knowledge of the process. She thought the action that she were undertaking would protect and enhance the wetlands, improve her property, and then also provide safety for small children and pets in and around the watercourse. The mitigation plan, and I will allow Kate Throckmorton to explain in more detail what she is proposing and what she has discovered. Generally, it would remove approximately 40 cubic yards of earth and rock near the watercourse. Material is anywhere between 6 inches and 2 feet deep at this point. Install more than around 30 wetland appropriate bushes to act as a natural living buffer, and to remove some unhealthy trees that exist within the upland review area. First, there are 3 white pines that need to be removed, which we will replace with 9 new white pines. And then we've also added to this application, even though it was not mentioned in the notice of violation, we would like to remove 2 tulip trees on the property that Kate will describe that are unhealthy and creating a potentially hazardous situation for the property owner and their dwelling. So that's an overview very briefly of what had happened and what is proposed. At this time, I would like Kate to take over the microphone, for lack of a better word, and describe.
Just quick question. Are the tulip trees in the wetlands?
The tulip trees, if Kate can point them out, I don't know if she can screen share while I'm speaking, but I think it'd be best for her, yeah, there we go. There's one there, and then there's another
Mhm.
one over there. They have been
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
By an arborist, and they are not in great condition, so we would like to remove those. At this point, Kate, could you take over and explain what you've discovered and what your proposal is?
Sure. Hello, good evening. For the record, Kate Throckmorton, licensed landscape architect with Environmental Land Solutions. I'm just going to give you an overview of the site before I zoom in. Witch Lane is to the top of the page to the north. It's a rear lot that slopes up from the street with a high point roughly here at an assumed elevation of 58. Then the lot slopes back down to a water course, which is located on the property here, and an associated wetland line, which more or less parallels the water course. With that kind of general overview, I'm gonna just zoom in on a little bit so we could read it a little bit easier, if I may. So the high point of the property is essentially right here, and it slopes down to the wetlands and water course in this vicinity. There's roughly a 14-foot drop from the high point. The house is kind of a walkout situation where you enter on the second floor, and then the grades drop off on both sides of the house, and a walkout situation under this existing deck. As Liz said, there's a new owner on the property, and they were looking to improve the parking situation on the driveway, which is located here. That evolved into doing some grading work immediately around the house, rebuilding a wall on the east side of the house, constructing a retaining wall along the western property line, and that led to further disturbance around the back. And as Liz said, the purpose was to really create kind of a boulder wall along the stream, and to create some separation for small children and pets. So this existing brook did have a low line of boulders that lined it. And what was the work entailed added 1 to 2 boulders along this area, which raised the grade up about 18 inches to 24 inches. And then the area, some of the material that was taken from the top was pushed down in this kind of general vicinity. So at the very lower level or southern area, there's roughly 24 inches, probably at the biggest depth here. And then it slopes back up to almost meeting grade or roughly meeting grade around here. And when you go to the site, you'll see that this deck is supported by several piers, and that the grade around the house really hasn't changed. So that will help kind of guide you in where the disturbances were. So as far as the corrective action portion of the proposal is that all the earthwork within the wetlands will be removed down to the older original row of boulders. All the earthwork will be taken out and feathered back once you get back into the existing grade. By the way, also all this area was actually in this existing lawn, which is reflected in Alexis's aerials, but it was wet and it was a wetland lawn. So we're asking that portions of that be allowed to be left as wetland lawn to get access around the back of the house, and then the 5 to 10 foot area immediately along the brook will be replanted native shrubs. So in fact, there will be a slight reduction of lawn from historic levels before the work was constructed. So the work beyond the wetland area is being asked to remain, and that includes this retaining wall along the western side of the house, this portion of the wall on the eastern side of the property, and this wall that was constructed with these stairs. And just to clarify, there's 2 upland review areas on the site. One is the 50 foot from the wetland, which runs essentially through the house right there. There's also a 100-foot setback off of the water course, which extends all the way up to the top of the driveway. So essentially, most of the work that did take place was in an upland review area. The site is now stable. The lawn's been reestablished. And the additional work I think that was mentioned was as we work through this application, there are 2 large tulip trees. They're essentially both in the wetlands. One is on the wetlands on the far side of the brook, and the other is here. They've been evaluated by an arborist, and they are hollow and do pose a threat to the house. So we're asking for those to be removed and replaced with another shade tree. We've also added some additional planting along the western side. And again, areas along the wetlands. I will clarify, there's 2 wetland lines on this property. One was originally done by Otto Thiel. They ran essentially along the line of disturbance, which is there. He did not end up finding the line that was buried. So and was not able to come back due to scheduling conflicts. So Steve Dancer was able to come out and with an auger was able to reveal the buried wetland line, which is here. And in between those 2 lines is the area that essentially defines the area that was filled within the wetlands. And I think, let's see, I think that's a pretty brief overview. Let me see if there's anything else. I did speak to the staff briefly this afternoon and was reminded that the plants in the wetlands, it is your policy not to use cultivars, and I do have some cultivars on my planting list, so that will be revised. The area, I think, as Liz said, the estimated fill in the wetlands that's got to come out is essentially 40 yards that we've estimated. The earthwork over the site in the upland review areas that we are asking to remain is approximately in the range of 100 to 125 yards, and that's just a guesstimate on my part, based on the existing walls to remain. And I'd be happy to clarify or answer any questions that the commission has.
Commissioners?
Kate, has the new or the recently constructed walls to the west and the east of the area that got filled in, is there any regrading associated with them, or are they just walls on the surface? And the underlying question is, do they affect the water movement down the site toward the wetland at all?
Okay, they're actually retaining walls. So actually this retaining wall to the right is actually a little bit higher than what is allowed by zoning. And there's some minor modification to bring that under code that will not change the flow or direction of the water on the site. On the left-hand side, this is a retaining wall, but it still allows the water to sheet flow in the same direction that it did before. And similarly, in this direction, the whole site is still grading essentially in the same direction. So some of the areas have been eased, but it has not blocked or redirected any water on the site.
Alexis, are the photographs and visuals that we had in May still available on our site?
Yes.
Okay.
So the photographs from I believe so. I will double get out of
Do you want me to stop sharing?
Zoom for a minute. No, I don't know if I have anything to share yet.
Okay.
Mhm.
Give me 1 second. I will, if the photographs are not still up on the website, I will post them for you on the website tomorrow.
Great.
Yeah, they are not on the website.
And if there are additional photos that you think would be helpful, let us know, and we'd be happy to take some additional ones if that aids in your discussion and analysis and action on this application.
Thank you. And actually, I will upload the photos from when, in advance of the enforcement order being issued. And then I have some additional more recent photos of the site after it was stabilized and the wetland flags were installed along the wetland line. So I'll post all of those tomorrow. And of course, I always have my pitch to commissioners to encourage you to go out to the site to have a look. Hopefully applicant has the wetland flags remaining in place. And you should be able to, it's fairly clear cut where the wetland is and where the work occurred.
Is access to the property problematic? I'm not familiar with specifically how one gets into it.
Right. Turn fast. And it's Witch Lane, so it's a very narrow portion of Witch Lane, and then the driveway, it's a rear lot, so it is kind of a skinny rear lot driveway. But if I recall, the mailbox and it's the number on the mailbox is placed right next to the driveway, and you're looking for kind of a rear lot and a long driveway. As you turn into the driveway, you'll see a shed on the immediate right, and then kind of keep going down to the rear lot. Once you're down there, there's plenty of space, especially now with the improvements, to turn around and get back out.
Thank you. Anything else, commissioners?
Yeah,
So-
I have a question.
Sure.
When this work was done, were existing trees removed from the wetland or the upland review area?
I don't believe there were any trees that were removed. I think, Kate, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think any trees were removed. Just the earth was moved toward the wetland line, and some additional boulders were placed along the edge of the bank.
Yeah, the work that's actually in the wetlands, there wasn't any trees or shrubs removed that we're aware of, that this area was existing lawn. I think there was some trees that were taken down along the western side, and that is where we have proposed planting some additional pine trees.
Thank you.
And so, yes, I would second what Ms. Throckmorton said. I had not been out to the subject property prior to the violation, so I don't know exactly what it looked like, but I had been out to an abutting property in the past. And then additionally, there are aerial photographs through time, which I think we looked at during the show cause hearing associated with the enforcement order. And there were a series of trees that were removed along the western side of the property. But as Attorney Suchi said, the aerial photos seem to indicate that the area between the watercourse and the rear of the house was generally cleared. Certainly did not have any large canopy trees.
Okay.
I'll repost the aerial photographs as well to the
Great.
website.
Anything further?
So just that it is, sorry, not very good at multitasking. It is a significant regulated activity, so it will require the scheduling of a public hearing at some point in the future. I would recommend that it not be at your next meeting on, that it be scheduled for a September meeting. But other than that, I see Mr. Levin has his hand raised.
I do. I have a question relating to tree replacement. And this is purely from my own ignorance. I'm wondering, are replacing 3 cedars with 3 green giant arborvitae equivalent and reasonable replacements? And the same question would apply for the tulips and with the black gum.
Well, in my professional opinion, I think that the junipers, the arborvitae do serve a similar habitat and purpose to the junipers, and they're the same general growth characteristics. They're both native trees. They both provide habitat for nesting and birds. The change is primarily to enhance the screening along that side of the property. The junipers have been there for a long time and they're thinning out and they're no longer providing the screening that's desired. As far as the tulips go, certainly the tulips have to be replaced with a shade tree, and this is our shade trees. They are slightly slower growing purposely so that hopefully we won't have created or really replaced these trees with a problem in 50 years, so that we don't get gigantic trees looming over the house that will cause a problem, but in fact, replace trees that provide similar habitat and canopy trees in the same location. I am not aware of the exact trees that were taken down in the western portion of the site. It does appear from the aerials that those are deciduous trees, and it's the owner's desire to replace those with an evergreen. They are all native trees, and the pine trees are in fact, I suspect, a larger amount than what was taken out. So in my mind, they're a reasonable equal.
Thank you.
Any other comments, commissioners? Can we tentatively propose the public hearing for the September 14th meeting? That's a month down the road. That ought to give enough time for preparation.
Applicant, is that sufficient time for you? You had, I think, mentioned some site revisions to the site plan, and then you would have to deliver notice to all the adjacent property owners.
Well, if the hearing would be scheduled on September 14th, we would have to notify the neighbors. I would say the Thursday before Labor Day, that would be sufficient, at least for my purposes. And we can certainly, I don't know if Kate has, if that's sufficient time for her to revise her plan and resubmit. But if September 14th is a date that works for Kate, then it certainly would work for me.
Yeah, that's not a problem for me.
All right, then
We'll plan on the 14th.
let's plan on that.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you all.
Maybe there could be a motion to that effect. Pretty please.
I move that a public hearing be scheduled for September 14th on S21 576 70 Witch Lane.
I second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion passes.
And that was Commissioner Marin's voice, right? Okay. Thought so.
Thank you, everyone. Have a pleasant evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Did I edge anybody out on that vote? Was everybody on board there? All right. Don't let me do that. Okay, next is 63 Cranberry Road. Corrective action. We have maybe 12 minutes before, 15 minutes before we start the public hearing. So I think we can approach this. 63 Cranberry Road, S21 577. Corrective action, construction of retaining walls, garden and deck with storage underneath in and adjacent to wetlands and a water course. 63 Cranberry.
The applicant is unable to attend tonight and is not present, so I would recommend tabling this, the receipt of the application, or at least the presentation of the application by the applicant to the next meeting on either your next special meeting or the September 14th meeting. We can discuss the timing later.
Do we
But
need a motion?
Table it for now.
Do we need a motion to table?
No.
Next on the list, S21 578, Dreamy Hollow neighborhood, 15 Margaret Street, 96 Dry Hill Road, City of Norwalk, replacement of stormwater infrastructure and outlets in the vicinity of water course. Can you guys do this in 15 minutes? I don't want to jam you up. We can wait until later.
So, and I'm gonna do a quick summary. So wetland commissioners, you remember the water course projects that you reviewed, well, the ones of you have been here for a while. The Public Works Department came in front of you for 5 different areas where they did some, what they called watercourse maintenance, where there was some excavation of watercourses in between portions of their piped infrastructure. And this is kind of a follow-up, the same area as one of those work areas, and they're now working in the piped infrastructure. Most of that infrastructure is not within your upland review area and it's not regulated by you, but some of those pipe outlets do still, outlet at the open watercourse. And there are 2 areas within this project that are under your review. Take it away, applicant.
Okay, well, I mean, those outlets matter. So, I mean, seeing how that's designed is important. And I do remember the West Cedar Street efforts and the clearing that was projected and undertaken what seems like eons ago. Can we take a look at those out and see what the outlets look like, see how the department has designed them to minimize things like, eating out the under the, the down area. Let's just take a quick look.
Okay, sure. Thank you, Commissioners. Darren Stairs. I am a project manager with Woodard and Curran. I'm joined here tonight by a few other folks from my office, Reed Heaton and Will Medlin, who are environmental scientists. And I also have Drew Berndelmeyer from the Public Works Department on the line as well. So if we have questions for him. We had a little presentation ready, but it sounds like we want to skip to the meat of the story, and I'll gladly do that. Reed, do you have the plans that you could bring up?
Sure, 1 second.
While Reed's doing that. So as Alexis mentioned, these are infrastructure improvements that had come out of a study we did of the area to help alleviate a lot of the flooding issues that occur up there. So most of the work is within city streets, but as was mentioned, there are a couple outfall areas that are the focus of our attention tonight. So take it away, Reed.
Sure. So the 2 areas that Alexis and Darren mentioned are outfalls. This is the Dry Hill Road outfall. It's near the intersection with Carlin Street. I can show you just for context where it is. It's this outfall here, and this is what it currently looks like downstream.
I don't
Are
see.
you showing a different screen?
Oh, what can you see now?
Still the plan.
The overall.
Okay, well, we can work with the plan set.
So the one outflow is on the left where your cursor is now. Correct? And that's adjacent to the wetland boundary or in the wetland.
That's right. There's a fringe wetland that runs along this stream. And this is our proposed box culvert to replace the existing undersized culvert. And this is the only area where we'll be placing riprap for outlet protection.
It's a box culvert?
Yes, sir.
The existing culvert is a 60-inch pipe, and we're replacing it with a 4x8 box culvert.
Is it open at the bottom or is it enclosed?
It is not. It's fully enclosed. It'll stay enclosed.
And there's another one up the road over here with.
Yep.
The other proposed box culvert is here at Friendly Pond area.
So this is actually upstream. This existing outfall coming into what's called the Friendly Pond area is a 24-inch pipe, and we'll be replacing it again with a 4x8 box culvert. So you're seeing the outfall from that conveyance on the left there.
So it will allow more water to go through if there's an extreme amount of water that's in the.
Right. Yeah. The design of the project is to alleviate some of the flooding issues that occur up above this in the Saddle Road, Daphne Saddle Road, and a CC Drive area.
Right. Okay.
And Alexis mentioned some of this channel improvements that were done included the section between these two pipes. So
Right.
we've sort of done the clean out in between them, and now we're connecting the dots with the pipes.
Do you have a schematic of the actual outflow itself?
A bit, a plan view or pictures?
Well, either one. I mean, to get a sense as to what it is going to look like after it's done.
Reed, do you have the?
I mean, are
slides
there
ready?
erosion controls on either side? Is it likely to scour out below the lip of the culvert? I mean, those are the kinds of things we'd be concerned with.
Yeah, so the plans show at the outlet of each of these structures, we'll be placing a scour protection, so riprap, and then revegetating on the banks.
Okay.
The outlets they're ending in the same place they currently exist. We're just making them bigger, as you pointed out. And so our scour protection will grow to cover the outlets of each of the new pipes.
So
Reed, I don't know can you zoom in on the outlet itself? Yes, you can see there the area at the end of the culvert that'll be armored.
So the slightly grayish area is the culvert?
This is the turf reinforcement matting, if that's what you're referring to.
Well,
And then this is the edge of the culvert.
okay, so the whole stream is going to be covered with a box culvert, or just the outlet?
Yeah, no, just the outlet. So unlike some of the other wetland and watercourse crossings that you've seen, the box culvert is used to replace an existing pipe. It's not being proposed to cross a wetland or watercourse. So instead of a pipe, they're proposing basically a square pipe, but in the existing location of the pipe.
The exact same alignment, the exact
And so
same ending.
the only activity is at the end of the box-shaped pipe where they're proposing kind of reinforcement. They'd have to do a lot of digging, obviously linear digging, to remove the existing pipe and install the new box culvert pipe. And then additionally, they would install and do grading at the outlet so that there is not additional scour at that outlet. But in order to do that work, they will be doing work in the wetland and watercourse itself.
Right. Understood. Okay, that's all I have. Anybody, other commissioners? Okay, good.
Yeah, I do have a comment, and not about what has been shown, but about some of the materials that were supplied to us. I believe it was the environmental report. There were images of some invasive plants, particularly Japanese knotweed. And I just want to make sure that that is considered as far as when you do this work, and that there's some kind of way to control its spread if it's right in the vicinity of where it's going to be, this box culvert is going to be.
Okay, yep, understood.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Stairs. Any other commissioners? Okay, thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Sorry to jam you into a short period of time.
Alexis, do we talk about a hearing date now, or is it?
So this is an intermediate regulated activity. Unless the agency feels that it warrants a significant permit application, it can stay an intermediate, but that would be up to the agency members. Staff feels that it's an intermediate regulated activity as far as its relatively small scope. However, it is within the actual wetland and watercourse. So that's certainly.
Is there any commissioner who thinks that it should not be an intermediate regulated activity? Okay, I think we can take that as a general opinion. We'll press on at intermediate. And, you know, I don't know if we can do it. Can we do it next meeting? I mean,
So what that means is that there would not be a public hearing required for this application. So they would skip a public hearing and go to continued discussion and potential decision.
right.
And I will get back to you, the applicant, regarding what date that might be in their upcoming schedule.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Thank you all.
Yep. Thank you. Okay, I'm thinking that we should not attempt to deal with the Rowayton Avenue Bridge at this point. I think it's just a minute or two before we open the public hearing. So if anybody would like to check their email, maybe this is a good time to do it. We got 2 minutes. Alexis, while we're waiting, I read, as I'm sure the other commissioners did, the letter from the neighbor. Does that get read aloud into the record, or is it just introduced into the minutes? Or what's policy for that?
Right, so any written public comments, I will note that when we open the public hearing, I will note the receipt of any public comments outside of the verbal testimony given at the hearing tonight. And then that becomes part of the record and is in the file. I mean, I will note that I have sent it to the applicant, and obviously all of you have it as well.
So it doesn't have to be.
That's all.
It doesn't have to be read out.
No, it's just noted that you have it.
Okay.
So maybe while we're pausing, I'll just go over public hearing procedure, if that's all right.
Yes.
So for the public hearing, we do follow, or the commission follows a standard procedure, and that is that they will give the applicant the floor, and the applicant will have the opportunity to do a presentation. The commissioners can ask questions anytime. The public will be invited to speak once the applicant has completed their presentation, and we will announce when it's time for the public to provide comment, and you can use the raise your hand feature, or if anyone is calling in, you can use the *9, I believe, to raise your hand if you're a call-in. We'll do first hand raised first to speak. It is not a back and forth conversation, but really your opportunity to provide comments. So you have one opportunity to kind of state your comments, concerns, observations. And then once the public comment period is over, we return to the applicant, and the applicant has the right to a rebuttal and the opportunity to address, if they wish, any of the remarks provided in the public hearing.
If there are any speakers or other members of the public who are looking forward to coming forward, it would be a great help to everyone involved if someone who has spoken before you has said something that you intended to say, that you consider allowing that to basically hold the line and speak for you. So it's not to spend a lot of time saying the same thing more than once. Thank you. Now it's 7 o'clock. I think we can start the hearing. Do we need to move to start it or can we just start it?
Either way, you can move to open the public hearing if you want.
Well, we're going to move to close it at some point. So I move that we open the public hearing on 40 Fullen Road, S21 570 at 7 o'clock on August 10th, 2021. Here a second? No?
Mr. Levin raised his hand.
Good. All in favor? Very well, let's go. The applicant is here and they're ready. We're ready for them.
Great. Thank you, commissioners. Adam Blank, I'm the attorney for the applicant, FRAP LLC. I live here in Norwalk. FRAP is the owner of property known as 40 Fullen Road. It's about 7.13 acres. If I can share my screen. You know the site shown here, but that's up and sharing with you guys, right?
Yes.
Okay, great. So this is the site as it currently exists. It's got a large abandoned parking lot on it currently with no stormwater drainage mechanisms. That the stormwater just sheet flows off the existing parking lot. There's wetlands on both sides of the property, as well as a drainage ditch, which is technically a water course in here. And on the existing, this is the parking lot that exists. As you may recall, if I zoom in, you can see the wetland flags that literally the edge of the wetlands. And again, it's not the review area. This is the wetlands itself. The edge of the wetlands goes right up to where the edge of the existing asphalt is all along here on the site. We've been in front of you before. It's a 40 unit of luxury housing for seniors. Some will be detached units. Some will be duplex attached units. It's 24 duplex and 16 that are single family homes. We back in May, we were in front of you once or twice in May, maybe even in the beginning of April. In May, you elected to have Ed Pollock perform an independent review of the proposed development and any impacts that might have on the wetland area. He did a site visit and completed his review in July and issued a report, which should be part of your file and part of the record. In that report, he did have a number of suggestions for some improvements to the plans, and he had offered a few questions. Since receiving his report, our team has endeavored to update some of the plans, which I believe have now incorporated all of his suggestions, and we've either answered or intend to answer tonight any of the questions that were raised by Mr. Pollock. And we believe that the evidence you'll hear tonight, plus what's in the record, should give you plenty of comfort that you can issue a favorable recommendation to the zoning commission and a wetland permit in this case. So without sort of further ado, we'll kick it off to the main attractions. We've got Len DeAndrea, who'll be first. He's the civil engineer, and then we'll let Matt Pop, a professional wetland scientist and landscape architect, speak, and then I'll just sum up for about 30 seconds. We do have Jerry Efron and Clay Fowler, the developers, on the Zoom. They don't intend to present, but they can certainly attempt to answer any questions you may have. With that, Mr. DeAndrea.
All right. Good evening. My name is Leonard DeAndrea. I'm a Connecticut professional engineer with DeAndrea Surveying and Engineering PC. And our firm has been providing land surveying and site engineering services for the applicant. I will hopefully attempt to share the screen if I can do that. And This is the site plan package that's been received. There's been an overview of the site itself. Actually, I'd like to see if I can get the existing condition up here. Let's see. Can you all see that? The
Yes,
existing conditions?
yes.
Okay, very good. So I've always said this is kind of a deceiving site in that you get the sense that Fulton Road to the west is quite a bit above the site. And it is initially, it drops down very quickly down to this water course at the westerly edge of a large parking lot. And this asphalt parking lot actually takes up about 30% of the site. But then from there, it starts to rise up in this diagonal direction, northeast, northerly, at about 2.5%. And then you get back up to elevation 100 in this corner where my hand is, versus the roadway itself, which is just under 104 when we enter. And then as you rise up into this wooded area back here, the highest part of the site is 108, which is actually above the road. So as we develop this site, you'll get the feeling of dropping down into the site to a lower area right in this lower southwesterly corner. And then it rises up towards the northeast. And it just gives you a nice feeling of a good circulation, not too steep, no house is much higher than the other. As it was stated earlier, there are presently no water quality structures on the site, and it just drains in its westerly fashion, actually southwesterly to this corner over here, and it gets picked up by this drainage ditch and then off to the site. I'll move on to now the development plan. What I did here is I tried to highlight a few things. So starting again at the Fulton Road, we're going to come down this driveway here. And then we've got a circulation in here of a driveway. Remember, these are not roadways, so we've been able to keep them not very wide, as thin as possible to provide the double-way traffic. But you have a loop and then a southerly loop, and then you have a northerly loop, more like a triangle. So you can basically walk around, drive around, bicycle around in this whole nice little complex here. The homes themselves are a combination of mainly duplexes, and they all will have single car garages. The duplexes obviously have a shared driveway. And then we have an end unit here and there that has its own single driveway itself. Each of them have a little patio or backyard. And in doing this design, because it is for elderly, we've tried to keep this as minimal a changing grade as possible from the driveway into the garage into the first floor. And that's a bit of a challenge. The site itself is characterized by this asphalt area here where these units are shown now. That actually has some pretty good soils underneath it, does have some higher groundwater. And then you get back into the wooded area, we start to actually see some ledge. Initially, when we presented to you, we were thinking of all these having basements. After we did our test pits and then looking at the volume of soil that would generate, we worked with the client and it was decided that no, let's minimize site disturbance, minimize the exporting to fill off the site. So now all these units are being proposed as basically slab on grade. We have one unit up over here, unit 40. And just because as we're rising in this northerly direction, we drop off the back of this with a walkout. That's the only unit presently that would have a basement. So our goal in here now is to continue to refine the grading plan. Right now, we're at about somewhere close to a 3,000 cubic yard net cut. And that means we would have to export it. So we're working now on fine tuning this grading to see if we can get that down to somewhere below 1,000 cubic yards or better. In doing that, we look at the elevations on the easterly side, compare those to where we're kind of locked in with elevations here for drainage, and see if we can balance that throughout by just tweaking the heights and the roadway grades around the site itself. The drainage, again, we are increasing the impervious coverage. Again, not by an exceedingly amount. We have a parking lot alone that's 30%. When it's all said and done with all the proposed homes and roadway, we'll be at 43%. So we have to do two things. One, we have to control that increase in volume of runoff, increase the peak rate of discharge, and also do pre-treatment, so water quality. At the same time, we want to continue to make sure we hydrate the wetland systems that we have both on the easterly side and on the westerly side. So what we have now is a series. We've identified where the better soils are, and starting at the top of the page, we have some infiltrators here, some over here by units 15 and 16. And I'm going to go through the infiltrators first. Then in the center section, we have a couple of arrays here behind units 34 and 35 and 24 and 25. And then one more down over to the west of unit 1. These then all become interconnected. So starting out here in the farthest reaches, we have a catch basin. Of course, that's going to be provided with a deep sump and trap into a series of basins that then link up into the infiltration center in the center. On the north side, it's basins that will feed into its own infiltration system here, overflow through this network into the infiltration systems in the center, and then eventually on out to the west. Another system on the westerly side, same process, basins into infiltration, and then the overflow into the infiltration in the center and on to the west. And the last one again from this collection area here. So again, all basins, deep sumps, traps. Then one more protective measure is as we get to the final leg of the system, before we discharge into the drainage ditch, we'll have a little note right here, hydrodynamic separator that will help us achieve at least 80% of removals. So that's our last vehicle defense. These are very easy to maintain. The other good part about maintenance itself, the nice part that we always say about community developments is you are one, not many. You're literally one project. You hire one landscape professional. They'll charge with maintaining the system, cleaning the basins twice a year, inspecting it as it need be, and keeping this running very, very efficiently. The other nice part about community systems like this, we don't have individual homeowners with lawnmowers, weekend warriors, if you'd like to call them that. So that's very much controlled itself. Waste will be taken off-site, and then taking this Westerly Road units itself. This is one of the wetland systems. Right where my cursor is now, that is parking lot that will be reverted back to a natural state. So that's a nice little buffer in there. The system to the east side is the same thing. We'll have a demarcation wall. They'll have the backyard, but this is a system that again is outside of the development itself. Utilities brought in underground, which will be your typical water distribution and gas. I believe, and I won't comment too much on that. I'll let Attorney Blank comment that. I think there's a need or a responsibility for doing some solar paneling. So overall, you have a very environmentally sensitive site. We know we're not taking any trees down in the parking lot. We do know we're taking trees down in this upland area. So with that, we come back with a landscape plan that I certainly won't steal Matt Pop's thunder, but let's see, where are we here? And this is what Matt Pop will get to talk about. I think that is, one last thing that I failed to mention is, one of the things in the report is that we should do something better than the circular culvert that we have for the crossing. So we did, and it was noted that it's not a large wildlife corridor, but we went with the 3-sided open bottom box culvert. So open bottom means it's just like the stream bed itself, and then the sides are concrete. So that will allow passage of your typical cosmopolitan species. I think that's a pretty good summary for now, and I'm certainly here to answer any questions you may have. If not, I can turn it over to Matt Pop to talk about this landscape plan.
I have a quick question about the area in the west beyond the new reconstructed wetlands area along the stream. Do you have any plans to move into that area and to do anything, or will that remain as it is?
I'm sorry, you're on the west
The
side?
western, yeah, the western portion on the other side of the stream.
Okay, hang on once. Let me reduce this a bit in size.
Len, maybe I could answer that during my presentation.
Yeah, that's very good. So you're talking about this area right in here.
Correct.
Okay, so that's a great place then for Matt to take off.
Thank you, Len. Matthew Pop, landscape architect, a professional wetland scientist with Environmental Land Solutions here in Norwalk. I prepared the landscaping plan before you and helped out with the environmental assessment report. I'm going to start sharing my screen.
I'll stop sharing here. All right, you should be able to do it.
Okay, so this is the landscaping plan, black and white. The site is just over 7 acres. Fulham Road is over here, Hills Lane and Westport on the to the east. North is straight up. The site is kind of broken into 4 different, I would say, habitats. Kind of starting at Fulham Road, we have kind of the hillside wetland area here, the parking lot right through here, a wooded upland area here, and then a wooded wetland and small narrow wetland corridor here. Again, that's wooded. Starting over, I'm going to work my way from west to east, starting at this wetland up here, this hillside wetland. Let's get to that. So this is what it looks like from Fulham Street looking down right from the road. There's some the dumping of landscape debris, some blown litter. Down into the wetland down here, you can see all this little white flower here. That's all garlic mustard. I think we have some Norway maples there. The garlic mustard and Norway maples aren't native, kind of invasive species. Again, that's the wetland, hillside wetland. Here's just another look when you walk down the slope a little bit further, standing probably right at the edge of the wetland. Here's that garlic mustard. You can see this chain link fence right through here, that goes kind of through the wetland. One of the things we're going to be doing is taking that chain link fence out. I'm going to be walking back here to the parking lot back here. So here's the parking lot, the existing edge of the parking lot, and that drainage corridor or swale is right through here. The existing asphalt parking lot goes right up to the edge of that wetland line. The next photo is going to be taken, back here. It shows a concrete drainage structure just laying directly over the water course right through here. There's concrete just dumped there. You can see actually the curb, the concrete curb right through here. It's right adjacent to that wetland corridor. What's
the thing on the left, Mr. Pop? What's that thing on the left?
Right here. That's a concrete drainage structure. Again, that will be removed from the wetland area, along with the concrete here. This vine right through here is porcelain berry. We have some bittersweet, again, not native vegetation. Now I'm going to be kind of turning around. This is the parking lot, the existing parking lot. There's a couple of existing pin oaks. There's some planting islands here, but mainly, again, as Len said, it drains from here down across the site to the southwest. There's no drainage structures or no treatment of runoff. Again, it just flows right off the parking lot into that little drainage swell and off the site. Again, now this is on the other side of the parking lot, looking towards the south. Here's that cut area right here that Len was mentioning. This is the wooded kind of upland area here. When you get in that wooded upland area, you kind of notice that there's a lot of debris, concrete structures, metal laying around, there's fencing, there's some fill piles around. And then the last photo is of that eastern wetland right through here. Here's Hills Lane right through here, the condominium project up here to the north. And again, that wetland area right through here. It's got some invasive species in there, not too bad. But right this area right here is actually old fill. You can kind of see it's kind of unnatural topography. So at one time, there was appeared to be, dumping right up to the wetland line. So the wetlands, again, here's that blue line right here is the wetland line. This is the hillside wetland to the west, and the blue line right here is the wooded wetland on the east. Both wetlands discharge groundwater, low-lying areas below when you're at the lower level, they discharge groundwater. There's sediment trapping. Again, any sediment from Fulham Road that washes down the hillside will be collected in the wetlands. Same thing with the Fulham Road. If there's any wash from Hills Lane rather into the wetland, the sediment gets trapped. Both wetlands produce some food for wildlife, and there is some wildlife habitat there, although not a great habitat in my opinion. There's also the possibility of somebody doing some wildlife observation, so it would be a recreational opportunity, mainly along this road looking into the site. I did check the Connecticut Natural Diversity Database. There's no known species of special concern, threatened or endangered species known to have exist on the site. I think there was a comment noted that someone saw some very, very uncommon salamanders, blue spotted Jeffersons and northern slimy salamanders. Extremely, extremely unlikely that they would exist here. I think maybe Mr. Pollock could comment on that also. Red-headed woodpeckers, there could have been one here. Occasionally, somebody across the state has them at their bird feeders. They breed mainly up, I think there's a breeding pair up by Hartford. I get all the birding emails. There's no red-headed woodpeckers reported in Norwalk, within I think the last couple of years that I know of. Let me go back to.
Oh, quickly before you leave that
Yep.
screen,
Maybe this
on the eastern side, is there drainage from that wetland area off-site? Or does it mostly just stay on site and be absorbed?
So
looking at our existing conditions topographic survey, there are no, it almost looks like it's a pocket. There are no formal drainage structures in that easterly end.
Okay.
So I think it's taken a while to load. I'm not sure why, but I think that wetland here, it looks like a depression. There may be a catch basin here that drains across the site, I think. I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, not that I could see there. No, there's drainage offsite to our south, but not in that wetland corridor that we found.
Okay.
Matt, you need to buy a faster computer.
I know. I'm going to go back to this. That's pretty quick. Again, it's 40 units that we're proposing. It's a landscaping plan here. We have, let me just review the kind of the wetland impacts, right? The wetland impacts or direct impacts are right here with the crossing of the existing hillside wetland. Again, it's a very degraded wetland system. 6 trees will be removed within this vicinity here. It will impact about 1,875 square feet of wetland. That's this area. In the eastern wetland, there's no direct impacts to that wetland. We are proposing about a 30 to 35 foot buffer from this wetland. Again, some of this buffer area here is kind of old fill areas that have been revegetated over time. Let me just zoom in on this. Behind units now 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. Again, that existing parking lot curb goes right up to this wetland line. The wetland line, again, is the blue line. What we're proposing to do is to remove that asphalt and the curb out of away from that wetland. And we're proposing there's a retaining wall here. And between the retaining wall and the wetland. It's about 18 feet in width or so. We're going to be lowering the grade to match the elevation of the wetland, and we're going to be replanting it with a number of trees, native trees, shade trees, and small flowering trees and shrubs, and seeding it with the wetland seed mix. We're trying to create a wetland habitat there. I think it'd be fairly easy to do, being it's a low-lying area and it will be at the same elevation of the existing wetland. I do have a cross-section, which is taken, this cross-section A prime, right through here. So just jump to the next one. So that's this cross-section here. Shows the house, again, existing house, again, no basement, so just don't, and we have a backyard of a kind of a retaining wall with a fence on top of it. And then here is the existing grade, this dashed line right through here. And here's the existing curb, right up against the wetland line. But this area right here, we lower the grade, maybe about a foot or so, just to match that elevation of the kind of the wetland area here. And we replant that with wetland type trees and shrubs, and we seed it with the wetland seed mix. And again, that will provide wildlife habitat. I think it will also improve any stormwater renovation from the site if anything washes off. So again, we're proposing 4,075 square feet. So it's more than a 2-to-1 direct wetland impact to mitigation. So I think that's a good mitigation measure. So back to here. So just again, maybe go over some of the best management practices. We're using retaining walls, around the site to reduce grading. That reduces the amount of impact. We have erosion controls. We have catch basins fitted with sumps to trap sediment. As Lenny noted, we had the swirl concentrator in this area here to catch any sediment within stormwater runoff before it's discharged off the site. We have the wetland enhancement planting. So within that wetland here that you asked, what are we proposing? That chain link fence comes out, and we're proposing, I think it's about 10 trees within the wetland system here. And this area is, it's sort of open air, open.
I'm sorry, what were you going to do with those trees?
We're planting those. So these are proposed new trees within the wetland. This area right here is somewhat open. So that's where we're proposing them there. And they're mainly oaks.
But you're not looking to take any down in that area?
No. If we were going to take any down, it would be, which we're not proposing, but if there was any Norway maples, I would think that might, which is an invasive species, that would be it. So we have a plant list here, and the top plant list is for the wetland and wetland buffer. It has the quantities, the types, scientific name, common name, the height. And then the bottom is just the ornamental plantings.
I would be cherry personally about taking down the Norway maples until I saw what they look like collectively in terms of canopy. And I think if it's possible to not take any trees down in there, it would give that wetlands a real opportunity to become whatever it can become.
Yeah, no, exactly. So right now we're not proposing to take down, any trees within that area. Again, just mainly to take the fence out, up along the hillside, take the debris out that that's on the surface, and then just plant these. And these plants are sort of on the smaller size, so we're not going in there with the backhoe to plant them. We're just somebody's walking in with a shovel to plant these right here.
Okay, great.
So, and then let's just see. We are proposing to take out kind of the porcelain berry within this area here, which is non-native plant. And then on the eastern wetland, I proposed to take out the barberry. There's some multiflora rose, and I think there's some privet. This note here kind of states what the plants are. Mr. Pollock think we just had one of the plants and he saw some additional ones. So we included those additional species to be removed from this eastern wetland. This eastern wetland also gets planted with some native shrubs, mainly spice bush, somewhat deer resistant, if there's such a thing. So in conclusion, we have 40 acres on 40 units on 7 acres, kind of proposing the development within the stair portion of the site and within kind of an upland wooded area here. We're proposing a wetland crossing here, which is about 1,900 square feet of impact of this wetland, which is degraded. We are mitigating that by more than a 2-to-1 wetland creation area behind these units here. I think the runoff from the site is treated very well, as Lenny noted. And in my opinion, I think that there be no adverse impact to the wetlands. And I think that especially this full and hillside wetland will be enhanced by our proposed measures. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Commissioners?
Oh, I have one more comment. So from Mr. Pollock's remarks. Let me do that. So this is on sheet LP2. I think his comment number 5, he had a bunch of recommendations. They're mainly included in this right here, number 6. I just kind of copied them and sort of pasted them in there. So most of those comments that he recommended are there. And then he mentioned about some spot grades within this wetland system. I just had noted up here that it'd be a 1% pitch going across instead of having the spot grades. So I did try to include all of Mr. Pollock's recommendations into our plans.
Thank you.
That is it. Thank you.
Commissioners?
If I could ask just for clarification, I think Mr. DeAndrea said that you're not doing a bridge over the wetlands. What is that going to be instead?
Yeah, I can show you if you'd like. It's going to be a box culvert. So if you think of it as a box culvert, it's an open box culvert, meaning the bottom part is non-existent. It's 3 sides, top and 2 sides will fit into the drainage channel. And then we'd have some angular stone riprap at the bottom for scour. And it'll give us about a 3-foot high by 4.5 foot wide clearance underneath the driveway.
So it's somewhat like a bridge, so it's prefab,
Yeah, it's like a bridge, except that we don't call it a bridge. We call it just a culvert. It's if you think of it that way, a bridge would involve a lot of footings, more excavation. This is a lot simpler in that you have a minimal foundation or crushed stone to set it upon, and it's in place. It goes in place quickly, and then you can start your crossing.
It's precast and it just drops in, right?
It's precast, yes, sir.
Yeah.
And we do have a detail for it on sheet, I believe it's 5 of 6. Yes, 5 of 6.
Anyone else?
Is there any designated outdoor recreational space for the residents? Just wondering if you guys are anticipating activity in the wetlands or not, if folks want to walk, get some outdoor activity.
Oops.
Hi, it's Jerry Efron, FRAP LLC. We are not contemplating any activities in the wetlands and not made any provision at this time. We think that the walking in the roadway system and in people's own private backyards should be adequate for this type of development.
Kind of in the southwest corner of the site, kind of have a small, open area. If somebody out there, was walking their dog or whatever, they could walk around the loop and then walk in here.
So there's no real paths being proposed. in the plan. Thank you.
So
Any
I have a
further?
couple- Yeah,
sorry.
just, and forgive me if I missed it, but I'm looking at some of the questions in the Kinetic Ecosystems LLC report. So, who will be responsible for determining when watering of the mitigation area is required? I'm sorry, was that addressed and I just missed it?
What was the question again, please?
Who will be responsible for determining when watering of the mitigation area is required?
That would be the wetland monitor, and hopefully that would be me. We're right, actually down the street from the site.
Okay, and so there are, I'm assuming, some sort of arrangements made in order to.
No, but I would think that the permit would have a condition that like a qualified professional will be responsible for that, making sure that the plan is developed in accordance, what was stated.
Is that one of the things that was added as a bullet on your drawings?
Yes.
It's on there? Okay. I'll trust you. If you're saying it's on there, it's on there.
I'm gonna check for myself though. Let's see. And the last one, H. Wetland monitor shall determine if additional irrigation is needed. So usually that's only like the first year. Hopefully after the first year that, these plants should not need any watering. So.
Okay. All right, and then there's another question about weed whacking. And again, I apologize if that was covered, but who will be responsible for determining when watering? I'm sorry, will this impact the establishment of desirable native flora?
Again, that's the environmental monitor.
Okay.
That's G, right,
That's the
Matt?
one.
Okay, I'm sorry. I just didn't get, yeah, I'm sorry. And then the removal efficiency of the treatment system, you said was 80%. Is that normal?
Oh, that's normal. I think it's when you take this treatment train and put it all together, you're going to exceed that because it starts out with the basins and sumps and traps. Then it goes into infiltration systems, and then finally the cyclonic separator itself. So you've got a lot of these just have one. You've got a treatment train on this one.
Okay. All right. So it's at least normal, but it's maybe better than normal.
Better than normal.
Great. Okay. And then the soil groundwater recharge has all been analyzed and.
Well, actually, that's a good point too. With the elimination of the basements, we have a more consistent groundwater movement. And then the soils, for the most part, underneath that parking lot, we did a lot of test bits and we found it fairly gravelly and sandy. So there's good movement of groundwater.
Okay. Sorry, I just, if any of that was repeating what was said, I just, yeah, wanted to make sure. That's great. Thank you.
Yep.
The other comments in the report about a qualified wetland professional needed to supervise the installation of the mitigation area. You guys have that all lined up, or that's part of the plan?
Yeah, I think that's one of these, number 6A.
Oh, got it. Thank you.
So.
And typically your staff would encourage you to, if you were to, in the future, approve the proposal, that it be approved with certain conditions, including the requirement of a monitor and a certain schedule for exactly what they monitor and the frequency that they monitor and report back to the office.
Does the design team or the property owner need any guidance on that? Or are you guys comfortable meeting what Alexis is gonna expect?
I think we're comfortable that we work together.
Great.
That also goes on to the same side of the drainage system too, that there's monitoring going on during the installation. And then we follow up with a final as-built plan that gets submitted back into engineering and wetlands and P&Z, certifying and confirming that it's been installed in accordance with the plan.
And on the zoning front, assuming that if we were to get an approval from them, they're going to approve it conditioned on, and they make specific references to the plans, and they would reference this page of this plan as a condition of their approval as well. So you'd be bootstrapped in a number of ways.
Anything else, commissioners, before we go to public comments? Alexis, do we have anybody lined up?
We do. So again, if you're an attendee, please raise your hand if you would like to speak. When we do call on you, we will move you over to so that you are able to speak, but you will not be, you won't be shown, just but your voice will be heard. And like I said, you have one chance to make your comments. And then we will return to the applicant for rebuttal. And so the first is Doris Ash. And Amelia, if you could allow her to speak.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Good evening, everybody. My husband, Jim, and I thank you for taking our question. We are residents on Hills Lane, on the Birchwood condos that rest to the west from Fulham. And our concerns are a few. Number one, what kind of a buffer, what kind of buffers are we looking at? For example, plantings for fencing, trees or whatever for site buffers and for privacy and so on and so forth. And the second part of my question has to do with the number of units. Looking at the plan, although the buildings are lovely, if that's in fact the design you're going with, it seems rather excessive. Are you, is the plan for 40 units or 28 buildings set in stone, or is that something that could be decreased?
I'm gonna jump in here if that, can I, oh, sorry. Can I just say something about making sure comments are applying to the issue that's under our purview, which is strictly relating to the function of the wetlands. Maybe it's just a reminder for everyone calling in.
Okay, I appreciate that. And then I will ask the one question that I have about that. We have in our development a stream running right under our property, and you can hear it from the drains. And I'm wondering what kind of impact this will have on the drainage of that stream going through to those wetlands on the upper part of the development, where behind, let me see, I can't really see the numbers of the buildings, but they drain towards, yes, there we go. Now I can see them. They drain towards units 17, 18, 14, 15, 16, 17, up in so the drainage goes down in there. I'm really concerned about the drainage. Our building would be perpendicular. Our building is perpendicular to those buildings. And as it stands now, with all the rain we've had, we have increased groundwater in our basements where we have our storage units that still hasn't dissipated. And I'm concerned about further impact on the drainage that we will have with these buildings. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, if anyone else would like, does that conclude? Yes, I've concluded her comments. Anyone else in the list of attendees, if you would like to speak, please click the raise your hand button on the Zoom app, which can be found if you move a cursor or your hand towards the bottom of your screen. Thank you. So next we have Jane Rubenstein.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm Jane Rubenstein. I'm here with my husband, Mark Rubenstein. We're Norwalk residents, and we reside in the 597 apartment complex, which is at the south border of this proposed project. And my questions are somewhat similar to those of Ms. Ash, in that we have an underground stream running under the property to the south. We have storm drains in place in the backyards behind the units, and you pretty much hear water flowing daily. My question is, the elevation of this property is about 10 feet above the backyards of the 597 property. There's a retaining wall that has been here since the apartment complex was created. And with the amount of construction that's going on, what is going to be the impact on the water flow to the south, where we are, as I say, 10 feet below the level of this construction? And I don't know who to address that question to, but.
Any other comments? So they won't do a back and forth. We'll receive all the comments, and then the agency, the applicant will respond to all the comments at once, but there won't be kind of a back and forth Q&A.
Okay. Thank you.
But your question is noted. Any other comments? From anyone else, please use the raise your hand function. We'll give people a second to raise their hands if they like. While we're waiting, I do want to mention that we did receive a written comments earlier today from an email from Dottie Brown, and her comments should be incorporated into the record. I have sent them to all the agency members as well as the applicant's counsel. So that is part of the record. Commissioner Mailing, I do not see anyone else listening in raising their hand to speak.
Thank you. Then is it appropriate to have the applicant respond to the questions raised?
Yes.
And Lena, I'm going to let you deal with the drainage issues and just comment that I think of some of the concerns. I mean, there's only a few raised, but I don't think relate to wetlands issues. And I'd note that on off of Hills Lane and there on Westport Avenue, there's a couple of condominiums and then the apartment development that are of a similar, if not significantly higher intensity use than what's proposed for this site. But Len, can you address the drainage concerns that?
Yeah, I'd like
to.
Yep. If you release it, let me share my screen, and I'll bring up the one that we need best to talk about. All right. Such a pretty one, but I can't use this one. So let me get to a different screen for us. Okay, here's my detail sheets. And I'll get to the site design. All right. We're certainly aware of the grade changes. Well, let me go one more sheet here. I want to get up to S&E. Here we go. When you, this is now on the north arrow there on the northerly side of our site. Right here, you see this 110 contour. That's a little bit of a split in what we call the sub watershed. So as you follow that, that's kind of the ridge. And this overland flow, which begins after the parking lot, drains to the east and then southeast into the wetland corridor. Over here, more towards the west, we have, again, the slope coming down from the parking lot. The parking lot is draining in this southeasterly direction. We then have this slope here coming over the wall into our rear yards. But we're not concerned about groundwater with these units because again, we don't have basements. So we don't have to worry about sump pumps or footing drains. And we're looking at this as saying, okay, we have this little area here to deal with. And so we've graded this out between the units, around the units, and into our system, which then goes in out to the south west corner. On the easterly side, excuse me, the same thing again. We have our units going into our drainage system itself, and then we just have some of these yard areas in between. So again, what we have to do with this drainage analysis is to balance that and not increase any peak rates or volume to any one area. And you can see we've achieved that because of how we distribute this and just leave this little bit of overland flow here. Hills Lane again is a divide, and it's draining towards the I guess you call it the south, and then you have this bit of isolated pocket. So our project is below grade to the north and basically elevated but draining westerly from Hills Lane, except for this one little region here. And again, the houses do not go in that direction, just that remaining little bit of lawn areas.
So but it seemed to me that both callers had a similar problem, although they live in different condominium complexes.
Right, right.
They're concerned that something related to the completion of this project is going to affect this flow of water from underneath their condo complexes. In your view, is that a reasonable thing that needs to be addressed?
Not from the test pits we did. So we have a feel for the groundwater levels. We have a feel for the ledge. We did not encounter any underground springs. We do have well-drained soils to the west. We do have some higher ledge here, but it's certainly down 4 feet or so. So no, and again, this whole site is shown in the existing conditions. There's a spine through here, more or less where this easterly driveway is, and that's the only portion that drains easterly towards Hills Lane. Everything else drains west and southwest out towards this swale on the other side. So we look at this one as saying, yeah, this is one we're really not too concerned about affecting neighbors to the west, north, south, and east, because we've got ourselves contained and controlled.
Mr. DeAndrea, could you also describe the drainage along that southern part? I think one of the commenters actually lives in the 597 or 595 apartments. So just go through that area as well.
So this has its own little set network, and you can see along here, we actually were able to pick this up. There's the Fairfield Norwalk Limited Partnership building, and you see all these fingers. I assume a lot of these are roof drains. And then this is a 12-inch line that is, what I'm explaining to you right now is off-site to the south. And this perhaps is what they're hearing and noting, but it does not connect with our system. This is all independent of ours. And then I believe it goes in this location here, and then it heads south out to Westport Avenue. So we've got these separated again. Different sub-watersheds is the way we're looking at it now. Whatever is on our site is now staying on our site and this side. There's just such a very limited amount of green area between the two. I shouldn't say it that way. You know, there's green area between the two. The impervious, the homes, are what drains into our site in a way. But yes, there is this network of drainage to the south of us. You can see it all along here.
Ms. Len, can you just, the drainage that's going from the roof drains from the homes on the site on the southerly property line, that water is not going to flow south into the abutting property, right? It's going to go to drainage on site.
Right. Our units here, let's call these out, units 1 through 8. Those roof leaders are draining into our center. And so the only thing that is shedding is the natural areas that are left behind, which are these swaths of green area. But again,
currently, all of the, both for the surface parking lot and the natural drainage is flowing in that direction anyway. So this is an improvement over what the existing condition is.
If you look at this closely, there's a little bit of an area here that naturally or presently drains to the south. This area over here in the parking lot is contained. So what this system was set up here, and when I look at something like this, I would say, without knowing it, I say, okay, they certainly recognized a drainage issue with this project, which is why they not only have the roof drains connected to it, and this system is flowing in this direction, which is basically westerly as I look at the inverts. They're picking up roof drains. Here's a larger line, 8-inch, might be taking roof drains, 6-inch, and then all that's here. And then along the way, they have these series of catch basins. So the point to make strongly here is whatever runoff may have been going in this direction has been mainly cut off. Say this area here, just talk about 5 and 6. There may have been a whole area here that might have drained this way. Now you're down to just this little area right here. You see this yard drain in here? This gets picked up and carried into our project in a way. So we've definitely improved. If this is a concern here, we've definitely improved on what may be leaving this site to the south presently.
So you're addressing the water that's leaving the site. I'm curious as to whether the construction process or the finished development would have any impact on these two, I don't know if they're piped or whatever they are, but there are 2 water courses that each of these 2 callers have been concerned about. There's nothing about the site itself that's going to impact on those drains.
Well, this is a pretty large system. Not having designed this one, it's curious to look at the size of this. We have 12-inch pipe and 15-inch pipe. So I would say that the engineer working this project recognized the drainage issue that they were contending with this project. I think to give you relief or satisfaction to this is, however we want to divide up this sub watershed that we talk about, it's very limited of what was going there anyway. So this may have been done because they may have had some high groundwater. We encountered relatively high groundwater up in this westerly section. But again, that's why we're not putting in our basements here. If we put in basements, we would have to intercept that groundwater and then pump it away. So
okay,
a good call there is to not do it.
Okay.
Right? And then again, as we go down this way, just to give them some comfort, even here, these little yard drains here, these are to pick up some isolated grading areas, but that water doesn't come to the south and gets discharged to a wall. It goes into our project. So it's always away from our neighbor.
Okay, thank you. Alexis, do we have other steps to take here?
Does that conclude your final remarks?
Yes.
Okay.
I'd
So
move to
then,
close the public hearing.
agency, it is, oh, sorry.
I'm sorry. I just want to make sure we do address them all. There was the one comment about site buffer. And although that's Matt's forte, again, I'm not sure where that's, I thought it was to the east side, but we have a landscaping plan that's going to do a lot for buffering any sight lines into the project.
It was the east side.
Right.
Okay, Commissioner Clark, did you have something?
No, I was just gonna say if we're done, then I'd move to close the public hearing.
If that's appropriate, Alexis, you want to make a motion?
That is, so you would need a motion for that. And so you want to just understand that once you close the public hearing, you cannot, that's it for your testimony from the applicant. So you can't ask the applicant for any additional information or revisions to the plan or anything like that.
Understood.
Okay, and I just wanted to add that you do have Mr. Pollock is here if you have any questions for him and the third-party review report that he provided you. But it was a very clear report. I wanted to throw that out there. And so once you do close the public hearing, you should not visit the site because that is gathering additional information, and you will not be getting any new additional information from the applicant.
Well, actually, can I then say, since Ed Pollock took time out of his evening to join us, I would at least want to
Yeah.
give him a chance to comment. Sorry, I totally missed that. So I'd like to rescind my motion if that's okay.
Sure, sorry, and my apologies, I did not understand that that was an actual motion. I thought you were opining, but not motioning.
It was not a motion yet. But now we're in a position to make a motion.
Well, actually, I raised the question. Commissioner Clocky withdrew his motion, I think to allow Mr. Powick to speak if there's anything else that he might add. So, Mr. Powick, if you're in attendance and you're able to answer, I'm wondering, what should we be asking you that we have not yet asked you or that has not yet been asked?
Well, first of all, let me ask this question. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, great. I've been sitting here wondering whether, just hoping that my audio connection is good. I have to tell you that about halfway through Matt Pop's presentation, my internet connection decided to drop off. So I frantically was listening for a while on my phone until it came back up again. So even though, through the wonders of Zoom, I'm speaking to you from my home office in West Hartford, and I greatly appreciate the ability to attend the meeting virtually. It's still fraught. So if perchance, I were to drop off again in mid-sentence, I would rejoin you by phone, but let's keep our fingers crossed and that it stays good. Just by way of introduction, I am a professional wetland scientist, a registered soil scientist. I've been so in Connecticut. I've been a consulting wetland scientist in Connecticut since 1989, owner of Connecticut Ecosystems. And for most of my career, I have been working both with municipalities and applicants on in wetland permit applications. But for the last number of years, I've been doing only this, reviews for, third-party reviews for wetland commissions. So I appreciate the opportunity. I think this is the first time I've done a review for this commission, but I appreciate the opportunity to review these materials for your benefit. And I feel really good, actually, in that, as far as I can tell, I've not reviewed the revised materials, but based upon Matt Pop's testimony, every recommendation that I provided in my letter dated July 9th has been incorporated in the plans. I thought the recommendations were all reasonable. I think thought that they were all necessary as well, particularly to give the greatest assurance that the mitigation plan will actually succeed. Based upon my experience with mitigation and what can go right and what can go wrong. So I'm very happy that all of those have been incorporated. I believe that the environmental land solutions letter that I reviewed, they accurately described the site as well as assessed the wetland functions and impacts. I should put that on the record. I'm happy to see that the crossing, which originally was a pipe, it has been now upgraded through what I would consider a feasible and prudent alternative to an open box culvert. That's certainly adequate. I think a bridge would have been overkill. It would have been much more expensive, and for really no environmental benefit that I could detect based upon my review of the site. So I do think that's certainly an upgrade and an improvement. I do have a couple of questions. I recommended in the mitigation, my review of the mitigation section, I did recommend that the applicants prepare a plan view of the mitigation area. What they've provided is a cross section, and that cross section actually, it is very valuable because you can see where the mitigation elevations lie in relation to the adjacent land to the west, which will be undisturbed, as well as a retaining wall and then the development to the east. That's very helpful, but I did not see in Matt Pop's presentation a plan view, which is looking down basically from above at the mitigation, as is actually, you know, the plans that you've been looking at are plan views looking from above. So if a plan view has been prepared and presented to the commission, perhaps that was done while my internet connection was down. But if it has not been prepared, I do recommend that it be prepared by the applicant, because that plan view would both give this commission an opportunity to see how that mitigation area, how it lies in the context of the proposed development, as well as the proposed undisturbed wetland and slope to the west. And very helpful too to any contractor who is going to be tasked with creating this mitigation area. Very helpful. They're very used to reviewing mitigation and construction documents from a plan view. So I would, when I'm finished, I would ask Matt Pop to clarify whether that's been provided or not. The other question that I believe I still have with regard to the mitigation area is the purpose of the proposed mowing or weed whacking of the seeded areas. I know in reviewing the Environmental Land Solutions report, they state that that will help exclude undesirable or invasive species. But you know, if the seeding is successful, and it should be if it's done properly and watered and seeds germinate, you know, those desirable seeds should very quickly take over the area that is seeded, and you know, invasives should be kept to a minimum. And it's difficult, very difficult to you know, if you're weed whacking, to not take down desirable species that have just germinated or maybe just the season before. I'm not familiar with that practice, other than perhaps to exclude woody species, but with an area this small, that's very easily done just with hand materials, you know, hand tools, rather than weed whacking and impacting the desirable species that you're trying to establish through the seeding. So I would ask Matt to clarify that. All of the other recommendations, you know, including monitoring vegetation through permanent plots, that's been included, as well as monitoring groundwater in perforated pipes. What questions should you be asking me that you haven't asked already? That's a really good question. I try to ask all the questions that I feel are suitable. I can tell you this, I've not, as I said, I've not had an opportunity to review the recently or the revised materials or additionally submitted materials. I did ask the question of whether, you know, the soils are adequate for the groundwater recharge that is proposed. I would suggest that you ask the city engineer to review that soil testing, and ideally that testing would have included some type of analysis of groundwater infiltration. So just to review, to ensure that the soil infiltration capacity is adequate, that the bottom of the recharge units is an adequate distance above any ledge or high groundwater table. That's the type of checking that should be done just to ensure that the recharge will happen as promised. That should be done by the city engineer. He should be certainly familiar with the DEP guidelines for installing groundwater recharge areas, and to make sure that the groundwater recharge volume is a criterion is satisfied as contained in the DEP manual. I would reiterate that right now that large parking lot, the abandoned parking lot, you know, that doesn't provide for any recharge. The groundwater just surface flows off it. So, you know, to the extent that the groundwater will be successfully recharged if the soils in fact are adequate, and to the extent that you know, there will be treatment both of the quality and quantity of groundwater leaving the site. You can view that as an upgrade and improvement over the existing conditions. It's pretty much all I can think of in terms of, what additional information you might ask or what questions you might ask that you haven't. I think you've asked a lot of good questions, and you've kept your questions, to the issues in front of you, the issues under your jurisdiction, and have not wandered off into, areas or issues which are more germane to P and Z. So I've been very happy just listening, from the outside to your questions. If you have any more questions than me, I'm happy to answer them.
I just say thank you very much for your service to us. It's been very helpful.
Appreciate it.
Okay.
Is it all right if we respond to those comments at this point? Yes?
Absolutely.
Okay, so I think Matt's going to address the weed whacking and the plan view, and then Len will address the recharge question. I believe those are the three issues raised.
Again, I'm Matthew Pop, a professional wetland scientist. The plan view is shown on LP1. It's just the overall landscaping plan. It's maybe not at a scale that Mr. Pollock would like. I think maybe he wants an enlarged one. But on this site, though, it's fairly narrow. It's 18 feet wide or so by however feet long, 300 feet long. So I don't think that an enlargement of that plan will show that much more than is shown on the LP1. So we kind of do have that plan view. It shows where the trees are going and where the shrubs are going and what areas are seeded. On the DeAndrea's plans, it does have the grading for that area. As for the mowing or the weed whacking of the meadow area, that I thought would be done in the winter months. There's porcelain berry back there, which is very aggressive and invasive. I don't think we'll ever get rid of that on site. If we did, that'd probably be a first. So, but if you wish us not to go back there once we seed the wetland creation area and planted it, I think that we would be happy to maybe just pull out the plants, the porcelain berry by hand to the best extent we could. So I think that we're in agreement with that. If we don't want the weed whacking, that's fine by us.
But that was the intended purpose to kind of not back the natives, but to assist in
usually,
damaging the invasives.
Yeah, usually the first year when you see a meadow, you usually want to keep it low to kind of keep the weed seeds out from germinating. And then it's the second or third year that you're no longer cutting back there. So, and again, that would be cut late fall, early winter, or winter, probably winter months. But again, it doesn't need to be done.
It wasn't clear, just for the record, it wasn't clear to me that weed whacking or mowing would be done in the off season. That's fine.
Okay, maybe it may even not have been stated. Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Len?
Drainage. The way we approach the drainage and the soil testing is first we had the site and then we did a conceptual layout. And we did it that way because oftentimes if we go to an undeveloped site and we just dig random holes, it often conflicts with what we really want to propose. So once we had the layout and the roadway system conceptually designed, then we spotted where the test pits were taken. And with the test pits, our system has already evolved. And again, we were kind of surprised. We thought we'd find better soils in the upper easterly area where there's the woodlands and things like that. It turned out to be better where the parking lot was. We took 20 test pits altogether, and then we refined our drainage system such that when we had those two large central arrays in between units 34 and 35 and 25 and 24, those are really very good soils. They were very gravelly. It had groundwater down to depths of 68, 54 inches. And then we tweaked our design. So we talked about how we eliminated basements because of some high groundwater and some high ledge. We lifted up the site now to make sure we had good separation. From here, this gets finalized into a drainage report following the drainage manual of the city of Norwalk, and then ultimately reviewed by the DPW, the engineering division. So we're on a good course. We've got good soils, fortunately. We've got it spread out, so we're going to have great recharging as well for the groundwater.
Yeah, and just to follow up on Len's point, the DPW does review and their sign off is required in connection with zoning's approval of the drainage plan. So it will have city review.
Thank you. Commissioners,
I'm happy.
I think the responses are sufficient that we don't need to keep the public hearing open to collect more documents. So I will take the liberty of moving that we close the public hearing. Anybody?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Jennifer. So I can't second my own motion, at least not yet. All in favor? Well, first of all, I need any discussion. All right, all in favor of closing the public hearing?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, the hearing is closed. Thank you, Mr. DeAndrea and company. And
Thank you.
we will move ahead.
All right. Thank you
Okay.
all.
Yes, indeed. Okay, returning to the agenda. I don't know if anyone has had the courage to hang around from the city to talk about Keeler's Bridge.
Yes, there's at least someone here from the city, and then the engineer on that is here. So
Good evening, everyone. My name is Paul Sotnick. I'm Senior Civil Engineer with the Department of Public Works. On Friday, July 9th, the city was impacted by Tropical Storm Elsa and produced 6.07 inches of rain within 24 hours, which was approximately a 25-year storm, which has a 4% chance of happening in any given year. And during that time period, we had received 4 inches of rain in only 5 hours, which made it greater than a 25-year storm. We had received on Wednesday, July 14th, we received a call from the resident at 407 Rowayton Avenue, a complaint about a potential crack in the center line of the road that they would like us to investigate. And on that day, I went out and looked at that crack in the road and discovered the northwest corner of the stone masonry arch had failed due to scour, which undermined the foundation of the bridge in that corner and basically caused the bridge to fail. So at that point in time, we closed the road and asked Dennis Quinnett, who is the manager of bridge engineering for Freeman Companies, who is a company that the city has currently an open contract with for design of bridges that need rehabilitation. And these are bridges that are less than 20-foot spans, basically culverts. And at that point in time, we had asked Mr. Quinnett to come out and do an emergency condition assessment and structure evaluation of the undermined bridge foundation for the city. And I'll turn it over to Mr. Quinnett at this point in time. And Mr. Quinnett, I just say, responded virtually immediately to us, and coming down from Hartford, came down within only a couple of hours, dropped everything he was doing, came down and looked at it. And we were very appreciative on the quick response that he made. So I'll turn it over to Dennis.
Thank you, Paul. So just wanted to give you an overall overview of the existing condition of the bridge. Paul alluded to some of the conditions, but I wanted to just show you exactly what is out there right now. If I were to share my screen real quick here, Um, So what we have here is a longitudinal crack along the road, which is approximately about 2 inches wide, 10 to 15 feet long. There's also a differential elevation from one side of the crack to the other, about maybe about quarter to half an inch. And that essentially was caused by the collapse of the northwest corner of the bridge, as you can see in these photos. And I'll describe to you the reason for the collapse later on. Essentially, this is the section of the bridge that failed and collapsed. The collapse was due to the formation of a deep scour hole that undermined the foundation of the bridge. As you can also see here, another evidence of the bridge settling. There's this large crack or opening or gap between the stone masonry cap and the stone masonry arch, basically because of the failed condition of that corner. The bridge essentially settled down. So just for reference, this is how the bridge looked like before the failure. As you can see, the exposed stone masonry footing, and although the channel was stable at that time, there is a little bit of a scour alongside the abutments and beside the stone masonry footings. And this is one of the exposed footings that we observed when we inspected the bridge back in 2019. This section right here is now gone. It's been undermined and washed out by the storm that inundated the channel during Storm Elsa. So essentially, the storm brought a significant amount of water into the channel and inundated the channel and created a pressure flow condition where, although the channel did not overtop the roadway, it created a constricted condition and a pressure flow condition, and basically forced water into the culvert, creating a turbulent vortex and increased pressure flow and what do you call this? Increased water velocity. That condition basically created the scour hole. The scour hole is about 4 feet deep approximately, and it's about the width of the channel or the bridge, and which caused the undermining of the exposed footings as it is. And the exposed stone masonry footings got washed out, which basically caused the bridge to collapse. That said, we made recommendations for repairs, temporary repairs, and also recommendations for permanent replacement. Basically, we were recommending, let me just show this. This is a plan view of the bridge right now. It's a conceptual plan that we developed. No exact details yet, but essentially the repair recommendation that we made were two things. One is to provide a temporary clear span bridge over the existing bridge, which will allow opening of the roadway without having to deal with the existing condition of the bridge. The other repair recommendation that we, repair alternative that we put out there is basically inserting a liner inside the culvert This essentially will be the temporary bridge while it holds the existing bridge in place. And this temporary solution will be in place while the permanent bridge is constructed. We also made recommendations for two alternative replacement alternatives. One is to replace the structure to emulate the existing hydraulic capacity of the bridge. This allows the reconstruction of the bridge sooner rather than later. It also provides a new bridge that will last 75 years. We can provide a structure that will have a bottom slab in order to prevent further scour in the future. The second alternative, replacement alternative, is replacing the structure with a larger opening, a larger bridge that will allow passage of a larger water with from a larger storm event. The one disadvantage of that alternative is that it would allow more flow through the bridge and could potentially inundate downstream facilities, properties, and other structures as well. So that alternative will require additional hydrologic and hydraulic analysis and determine the impacts of larger storm event flowing through this structure and see what those ramifications are. Obviously, since there will be more water flowing from upstream, wetland impacts from upstream will have to be evaluated as well. So that alternative not only complicates the replacement of the structure from an engineering standpoint, but also from a permitting standpoint. And so because of that, we were recommending replacing the bridge to emulate the existing hydraulic capacity of the existing bridge. With that in mind, this is the conceptual plan that we came up. We haven't determined the size of the box culvert yet. The box culvert will essentially replace or emulate will be sized to emulate the existing hydraulic capacity of the bridge. In order to satisfy regulatory agencies, we will embed the box culvert about around 2 feet below the existing channel bed. We will provide cutoff walls to the inlet and the outlet in order to prevent future undermining from scour. We can also consider a 3-sided box where we will have a natural stream bottom. However, that will require a foundation that will have to be deep enough in order to allow the structure to survive future scour. Reconstruction of this bridge will require handling of the water handling in order to maintain the channel flow. And our plan for that, we haven't detailed it yet, but our plan for that will be to provide a bypass pipe towards the east of the existing structure, which will require excavating the eastern side of the structure in order to provide possibly maybe about a 4-foot, if not a 5-foot diameter HDPE pipe. There are trees and utility poles that might be impacted by that. We'll just have to see how that goes. We will try to save the trees that are going to be in the way. If not, then they will have to be taken out. After that bypass pipe is installed, then we can then remove the existing and install the proposed the proposed replacement bridge. Roadway will be maintained or matched to match existing. There will be no widening or that we do not anticipate raising of the roadway. There are some traffic safety features that I think that the project can realize with this reconstruction, meaning that we can provide metal beam railing or guide railing and extend the bridge a little further out so that it is outside the zone of intrusion and for traffic safety. That's that for this presentation. If you have any questions, I'm open to answer them.
That's pretty impressive. I have to say, since I don't know anything about bridge building, I think that was a delightful and very interesting presentation. Any other commissioners have comments or questions? I mean, my understanding is that the professionals at the department will make a decision about the type of bridge or conduit that's appropriate for this situation, and then come back to us with a very specific recommendation. Is that how that would work?
Structure type study is one of the processes that we go through to make sure that we have the right size, right type of foundation, and we'll also consider the construction costs for each structure type that we consider.
Right. And so I think what the agency has to be able to approve, some kind of plan. And I think that you're, like you said, Mr. Quinnett said there are some additional tweaking, and it sounds like you have narrowed down the concept plan of keeping the hydraulic capacity so you don't change the flood impacts upstream or downstream. A slight widening of the structure to allow kind of better roadway safety. And you've taken care to minimize the amount of watercourse disturbance with the particular structure that you've proposed. I guess I would consider looking at some kind of natural bottom. I understand that there's an obvious engineering desire to have a structure that kind of stays there for a very long time. But as we know, we're in a dynamic water course, so it may make more sense to have something that is open bottom, but yet still has protection of the infrastructure and the sidewalls of the culvert, basically, that's holding up the bridge. And then that's just my 2 cents as far as bottom being hard or natural. And then I think Commissioner Mailing, you had a question about when would it be approved? And I think that their concept plans are actually getting pretty close to the level of information that you would typically have for a construction project. I think you would just need a little bit more detail regarding the installation and how flows would be bypassed during construction, but I think that that's generally covered by this point. So I don't know if there's, unless you want a tweak to the concept, I don't know if there's too much more for permitting. When they were talking about detail, there's a kind of a level of detail for for permitting, and then there's additional detail for kind of the construction set. And usually you don't see the construction set, you're just looking at the permitting detail. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Well, I think that it's been, the presentation included references to and concern for the wetlands impacts of existing situation, and that's certainly the most I think that we can look for, to be certain that that's being tended to. And our prior experience with this department has been that they have done so. And so there's no reason to think they won't continue to do it this time the way they said they would.
We have surveyed and delineated inland wetlands. And essentially, the inland wetland in this site is essentially the same limit as the stream channel. So whatever wetland impacts we're going to be having are essentially the limits of the channel and the limits of the or the extent of the construction, which will obviously minimize as much as we can. From a standpoint of the structure type, the one advantage of the bottom or the four-sided box is that obviously the bottom slab can help mitigate future scour, but in order for us to be able to somehow satisfy regulatory agency requirements, that's the reason why we're embedding it at least 2 feet in order for the channel to have a natural stream material at the bottom of the channel. And sometimes this material can get scoured away, but you know, they can be refilled again in the future if necessary.
Well, I think that's a pretty, I mean, you're going to be doing the construction anyway. To go down another 2 feet to put a solid bottom culvert that would allow you know, natural flow through there would eliminate the chance of scour and would make it a more natural flow. I mean, it seems sensible. However, you've got to look at it from whatever price and but from an environmental standpoint, from a wetland standpoint, you know, it seems to me that you guys are thinking it through. So,
Commissioner
Thank you.
Mailing too, I can just mention too that we are looking at making an arch like you currently have there with the precast. We are looking at doing a form liner to make it look a little more natural for the environment, possibly using the timber guide rail to make it look more natural for what is out there today too. So we're considering all of those things as well. But this setup would give us the quickest turnaround, and Army Corps would probably not have as much to say about it. And then also we would be able to open the road as soon as possible too, and try and check all the boxes.
yep. That sounds great, Paul. Thank you. Okay, anybody have any questions or concerns for these folks before we move on? All right, thanks a lot for your patience and, you know, waiting for us.
You're welcome.
Okay, we move on to discussion and or decision. We have first on the list, S21-572, 20 Granite Drive, Lusardo, corrective action. Alexis, did we get yeah, we did. It's just got late and I forgot that we had it, but.
All right, so at the receipt of this application, there were some comments made, and then you met for your previous meeting of July 13th. And then at that meeting, there was discussion regarding possibly being able to have a meeting on the 27th of July, but that didn't work out. But you had asked for a resolution at the July 13th meeting.
Well, that resolution was provided in the memorandum dated August 4th, which I've read over and which includes Mr. Lusardo's schematic that he drew of what's going to be done. And the commissioners, having looked at that, I think the resolution makes sense. Does anyone have a question or concern? Hearing none, I will step up and make a motion that the inland wetland application S21-572 for corrective action, removal of rocks and stone walls and mitigation landscaping in and adjacent to a water course and wetland be granted to the Luzardos for the property at 20 Granite Drive with the following conditions as outlined in the memorandum dated August 4th, and including the schematic that Mr. Luzardo provided. That's my motion.
I second that motion.
Thank you.
Any discussion? Vote all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Then the application is granted. And we thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Luzardo, for your patience and wish you luck.
Thank you so much.
We'll be sending
Okay.
that out shortly.
Next on the list is 8 Sunwich Road, Fletcher Development LLC. That's S21-574. And that too was addressed in a staff memo dated August 4th. The applicant's intentions and alterations were discussed, and we have a resolution in hand. I will stand aside and see if someone else would like to address that. Commissioner Levin.
I'd mentioned to Alexis that I think we should amend. I would like to amend the resolution to insert the words inland before waterway and water course. I don't actually have the resolution right in front of me right now, but I think it needs to be modified to differentiate between inland wetlands versus tidal wetlands. Because tidal wetlands are not part of our purview and we are not able to expertly analyze and understand.
Well, the resolution does specify inland wetland agency, but it does not. It does not specify tidal wetlands. It doesn't mention them because they're irrelevant to us. But it says inland wetland application S21 demolition of existing dwelling, construction of new single-family residence. And then a series of conditions.
Alexis, I apologize. Maybe you could just help me out and tell me what was the modification that I was recommending, because it applies
Sure.
to further down in the motion. It's getting late.
I think it was actually the very beginning of the draft resolution. The draft resolution begins with 2 whereases, as I call them. And the first whereas is that you as the agency have carefully considered all the information submitted and all the factors considered. It's detailed in section 60A-10 of your regulations. And then the second whereas is that the impacts of the proposed activities as conditioned below will not likely result in any negative impact on the wetland or water course. And I think that you had wanted to insert the word inland wetland or inland water course. That was the comment Commissioner Levin had emailed earlier to me.
And that was done.
No, I did not. I have not revised my memorandum to you. I think that Commissioner Levin is asking that if anyone were to make a motion on this application, if they would consider amending the resolution to approve with conditions to include the words inland in front of the words wetland and watercourse. Is
So
that a
yeah,
correct,
so
summary?
actually, I move that.
Okay.
I second it. Motion's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor for the motion, subject to Commissioner Levin's amendment?
Aye.
Any opposed? Then the application S21-574 is granted with the terms and conditions and amendments discussed.
I will be sending those out to you shortly, applicant.
All right. Now, as we rocket through, we have a bond release at 95 Grumman Avenue. I move that we release the $1,000 bond. No,
Sorry. I would request that I do a quick description of the activities. Well, I've lost their file. Hold on one second. Oh, let's see.
No rush, Alexis.
I've misplaced the file. Misplaced the, here we go. So this was a corrective action application that was way back in 2011. And I don't have digital copies, so I'm gonna hold up a site plan. The applicant was required to file because of some clearing and some minor grading adjacent to a wetland and within the upland review area of a water course. And it was actually approved. I don't have a lot of very good plans to show you because it was approved with some pretty minimal mapping. This is a map that that I had made of the property. It's a rear lot and the wetland is in the back here. There's a water course at the top of the page. And then this is the upland review area. And it was work within this area here. And they were required to remove some of the fill, which ranged from about 4 feet to down to 0 feet, and replant. I don't have any record of them ever planting. I know that the applicant indicated that he had sent emails and had called saying that he had installed the plantings. But we keep field inspection reports, and the most recent one I had was from September 2012 from the previous environmental compliance officer, Ms. Blexis, who indicated that there had been no new plantings as per the permit requirements. And then I just wanted to show some photos that Miss Amelia actually took earlier today, just in case there are some plantings to show you. Let's share my screen real quickly. And so this is that rear area. You can see the adjacent property or the rear property kind of in the back, some clearing, and this is the vegetation in the front. Let me just go backwards. It's this area behind what is now being stored, some trailers. It's this general area from here back that was to be the buffer planted area. So this is a photograph of the area. We were unable to find any shrubs. There are a lot of kind of mixed vegetation, excess of Japanese stiltgrass in the front, some lawn dumpings, a recent deposition of lawn clippings, a variety of vines, grape leaves with some galls on them, some landscape debris that has been deposited in the back. But we have not been able to find any shrubs, either alive or dead, in the back of the buffer area. It is a wetland buffer. It is not within the wetland itself, if I recall.
can you go back 2 pictures, 3 pictures?
Yes. 2, 3.
So what are those plants in the back there? That's somebody else's?
This, that's, that might be on his property. Those are the remaining of tree, sorry, they're turning off the lights in the office. Trees covered by vines.
Oh, okay.
Looks pretty thick, so I don't know if it's, it might be like a non-native vine.
All right.
As opposed
Fine.
to, this is poison ivy, it looks like, but I'm not sure what
Right.
that is.
Okay.
But yeah, those are large tree trunks.
So there's no evidence of compliance.
Unfortunately, no, I have never seen any evidence of compliance.
And what's the approximate date of the resolution that approved the remediation plan?
It was October 12, 2011.
Okay, so not quite 10 years ago. And
Yeah.
the remediation plan has not yet been satisfied, or it was, but now it's overgrown. Alexis, can you tell us what the status of the remediation plan is?
So the applicant has stated that he told us that he had planted the plants some time ago. I think he threw out dates in 2014 or 2016. But I have no indication of that in the file. So
I move to deny the bond release.
I second that motion.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. Hand vote. All in favor? Opposed?
and that was that you, Cheryl, seconded? Or no?
No, it was me, Farah.
No, no, it's fair. You changed your voice. Sorry.
Okay,
Thank you.
I'm looking at my S11-402 bond release is, the request is denied. Moving on, approval of minutes. Anyone have any comments to make
I
about the
did.
minutes from 13th?
I wasn't included in the roll call.
Oh, for God's sake.
Uh-oh.
Oh, you should have been.
And I was looking at it and I was like, I'm sure I was at that meeting.
You were. And we're
Sorry,
glad you
I'm
were.
sorry,
We're
Sid.
glad you were, and you should have been, you should have been there. Okay. Any other changes, errors, or omissions
I
to
have
the
a
minutes?
one that I may or may not be right on here. Alexis, I'm sorry, I don't even know if I can pronounce your name correctly at this point. How do you pronounce your last name?
Caricetti.
Caricetti. Okay, on
Like
page
you
3, it says, Ms. Caricetti stated she was reviewing the new state legislature. This is when we were talking about whether there's
Yeah.
any hybrid meetings. I don't know if that should be legislation or. I
Yeah,
might just-
probably. I
Little
was not
thing.
reviewing the legislature. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Do I hear a motion?
I move to adopt the minutes as amended.
I will
Or
second
as-
the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. None opposed?
I'll abstain
The
'cause I
motion
wasn't there.
passes. You abstain?
I'm abstaining.
Okay, let's go back and start over.
What? No.
So
Okay.
maybe raise your hand if you are voting on the next item,
If we're
on the
voting on-
minutes. Is it just Steve that's abstaining?
Yeah, we're
Okay.
voting on.
Sorry.
Right. Okay, we're down to public comments. Is anybody online to offer public comments? No. Then comments of staff. Anything, Alexis, other than, okay, comments of commissioners. I only would like to just ask for an early head count as to whether we're going to have a quorum on the 24th. Anybody not planning to be here on the 24th? Okay, looks like we're good.
And then can I just ask some questions regarding the intent of the purpose of your meeting on the 24th? You have I know that the original talk about the 24th was for Conservation Commission non-inland wetland related work. But then it sounds like there's some pressure to have maybe some limited inland wetland business at that meeting as well. So I wanted to just kind of get your feeling for where you were going with.
Can you elaborate on the pressure to have some inland wetland business?
Well, okay, not you, pressure. There's a lot of pressure on my side to get things moving on my side. But you don't have, it's not a regular meeting. It's not on the annual meeting as an inland wetland or conservation commission meeting. So you can certainly just meet as the conservation commission and not the inland wetland agency, and that would be just fine.
Well, we don't want to leave you hanging if there's problems with timing on getting something decided on.
Yeah, I mean, there's always.
Okay, there's always something. There's always something.
Emergencies, yes.
Right.
Always things that need to be expedited because there's, places that people want to sell or places that people want to put on the market or, all that kind of stuff.
Well, I think it would be, I would like to hear, and I think it would be good to have at the 24th meeting, observations, comments from individual commissioners as to the balance or interrelationship between a conservation commission and inland wetlands agency. I think that might move our ball forward. I don't think we're going to reinvent the wheel, but I think that we can begin to develop a consensus on how we want to look at the stuff that comes in front of us.
Are we going
that's-
to do it in person?
And Commissioner Levin has his hand up.
Oh, sorry.
Go, John.
Okay. Yeah. So look, I apologize. We are 3 hours into this meeting and I personally am exhausted and don't want to talk about anything else. So I'm really frustrated that in fact, the IWA business monopolizes and takes so much of our time. And there's, as a consequence, activity of what might be a conservation commission gets squeezed to the margin and really, for all practical purposes, eliminated. And I think that's something that we really need to discuss and find a way to address and fix. So there's a couple of things that I am very, very anxious to discuss with my fellow commissioners. One was encapsulated in an email that I sent out, I believe yesterday. It was circulating the story that appeared in Nancy on Norwalk about the tree warden wanting to revise the ordinance for tree removals, and that the city council's ordinance committee is in the process of trying to revise tree ordinances.
Just to clarify that, I think that's that the common council members want to modify or revise the tree ordinance, and the tree warden is one of the staff people that they are consulting with. Just to.
Right. So if you have not seen the article from yesterday, I would encourage you to take a quick look at it. The ordinance committee is headed by Lisa Shanahan, who I understand was previously a member of this commission. And she is keenly aware of the challenges that we face when we see developers or homeowners removing mature trees and replacing them effectively with saplings. Because as the tree warden is quoted in the article saying it's not a fair trade to replace a 100-year-old oak tree with a 1-year-old sapling or something like that, of a different species even. So anyway, I want to talk about that at some point. The ordinance committee is meeting on September 21st. And I would like to know if it's possible I would like to invite every commissioner and all staff members to come to my house this Saturday to hang out and talk about beer, wine, snacks, and and ordinances.
Won't that
Um,
be breaking regulations because we'll be in quorum?
No, I think if we're not discussing the business of the Conservation Commission, I don't think that it should be an issue. That's my opinion. Alexis or Chairman Molling, do you have a different view?
Well, I don't know if this is necessarily the venue to offer a social engagement to your fellow commissioners. So if I'm not around this weekend, but if you guys want to socially get together to discuss non-commissioned business, who am I to say who you hang out with on a Saturday?
Good answer. Then I will circulate an invitation to the appropriately. Also, I think a Conservation Commission should have an annual meeting and presentation to the community of some sort. Also, I would like to see public comment moved earlier in the evening rather than the very end, because most public members just don't have the stamina that we have to stay around for all of this time. I think we also need to update and post the inventory of open space as required under the Conservation Commission statute. That's a work project. I think also I'd like to know if property owners are given proper notice of whether their property includes wetlands or upland review areas. And it would seem that there should probably be some standard notification so that every property owner or every purchaser of property is fully aware of what their responsibilities are under the state's inland waterways laws. I think we should also talk about funding the open space fund and do that proactively. And there's probably one or two other good things that are worth discussing as well.
What kind of beer are you gonna have?
The best. We're gonna have lagers for myself. Seltzer, what do you call it? Hard seltzer, wine, IPA. I don't know, whatever. Bring your own. It'll be fine. Oh, we have a swimming pool. Oh, and we probably, it's actually, it'll be great if Alexis isn't there, because there's a vernal pond right behind our house that's on our property. We're probably got violations out the wazoo just from that vernal pond and various encroachments, or not. I have no idea. I don't know anything about it. So anyway,
Because nobody told you when you bought the property.
Exactly, and that was only 30 years ago. Yes, that's correct. You didn't know anything. Although actually, I think the pond is itself a man-made structure. Anyway, I'll send out an invitation for Saturday afternoon.
Thanks, John.
That's all I have.
Is it time to make a motion to adjourn yet?
Boy, I tell you, as far as I'm concerned, it definitely is, Farah.
Okay, I make a motion to adjourn. I'm very tired.
Yeah, me too. I second the motion. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you all.
Aye.
See you in 2 weeks.
Yes.
Good night.